Hey everybody, this is Garrett with Earth and Time, and today I'm making a stop at what was once an old Great Depression era gas station stop or way stop here on the border of Arizona, Utah, Nevada. No place known as a Castle Cliff gas station, and we can see the Castle Cliffs sitting behind me. So let's learn about this unique place in history, the story about the Lowe family who actually homesteaded this area and actually set it up as a little bit of a tourist destination. Let's go explore a little bit in these rocks and find out what's left of this amazing old historic site. Let's get to it. In 1926, four siblings started a homestead here on what was Highway 91, and we'll see cars driving behind me along the modern Highway 91 route. However, back in the 1920s and 30s, this was the main thoroughfare going from Utah down towards Las Vegas, down to Los Angeles. So this is where a lot of traffic would come through. And so this Lowe's family, or siblings in this family, decided to homestead this area and ended up building a gas station here back in 1926. And I'll plug that image of what that gas station looked like during that time now. I'm standing pretty close to the same spot where they would have had that awning and that gas station built out right in this area, and you'll see they have some caves and some other maybe storage areas there. Now, this was a labor of love, and back in the 1920s and 30s, not only was it a labor of love, but it was a necessary place when you're driving through this arid region and this pretty harsh desert, which if I turn around from the Castle Cliffs old gas station location, you can see the barren hills, the Joshua trees in this area, the rugged terrain. So it's dry, in the summers it's very hot here. So one of the things that the Lowe family decided to do was to actually capture some spring water here and actually sell spring water at this gas station. But before I go look at where that spring was at, let's talk about the shape of these rocks here and what these rocks are. As you all know, not only am I a historian, I'm a geologist as well. And this is why they call this Castle Cliffs. It has this turreted look to it. It looked a lot like castles when they first saw it. And this is all made up of a bunch of limestone. There's three types of rocks: igneous, metamorphic, and sedimentary. This is a sedimentary rock. It's actually a chemically derived sedimentary rock from things like corals. And it creates these amazing shapes when it weathers. There's not much left of the gas station that was here. They've torn it down through the years. What we can see are, if we look around, we'll see some remnants of places where they tried to capture water, like down this little drainage through here. There's a little tunnel where they could probably keep some wares that would keep it nice and cool in here. I don't think they probably lived in these tunnels, but maybe. You'll see there's a lot of unfortunate trash and crap back there, so I'm not going to go in there. It looks like people have had a series of fires through time as well. But this would have been the site, if I turn around, of where that gas station would have been based at. Now, with the gas station, I mentioned one of the things they were able to do is siphon into and tap into some natural springs that come along some of the fault zones that are in this area. So let's go take a look at how they captured the water here. One thing that's fun to do as I walk around here is take a look not only at the rocks, but you can see some pieces of what's left of the old gas station, where you can see they use cement to create some kind of terrace up here. Now, I don't know if they walked up here or if maybe this was a little area where they kept some animals. So they did say that they would capture Gila monsters and various animals, and they had a little zoo here as well that they would people could go take a look at when they were stopping over for water and for fuel and for food. So I don't know if maybe that's what this is a leftover of behind me, but we can clearly see where some of the old cement was from this old gas station. And as I continue to work my way along this cliff face, we'll come to where they were actually capturing the rainwater and spring water coming out of the mountains here, and specifically probably from a fracture or fault. So as I walk along this cliff face, we come to what was a wall that was built here, probably somewhere for folks to park. They could probably park along here or hang out around here, maybe picnic. And as I pan up, we can start seeing these structures up the hill. Here's one here You can take a little path up and look. Probably was a rainwater collection site. And there's one even farther up there where you can unfortunately see some graffiti. It's a shame people do that. But there's actually you can see there's a little hole in there, which I think was a natural fracture and or fault that they could get water out of. So one thing about limestones is they fracture very easily and they also erode very easily. So water can travel through it readily and people can tap into some of these features and collect that water. And that's what I think they did here. They probably grabbed some water up there, came down, grabbed some water down here as well. The other thing to notice is that it looks like they terraced the hill, which for safety reasons is really smart, so they wouldn't have landslides come down and take out this wall they built, or even the road here, because this road was vital to their livelihood when they were living out here in the 1920s and 30s and supplying that gas, water, and food to people. I walked up the slope a little ways so you can see where one of these retention ponds were for water, and probably as much for debris as well. We'll see there's little rocks that are about to fall off of this because you can see how this is all fractured along this face. Pretty cool look at some amazing limestone. And so the Lowe family was very smart to build basic structures to capture water, also probably to capture rock falls as well, but they could use this water for the individuals coming through here and traveling. So I went ahead and hiked up a little bit farther up, and you can see the cabins down below. There's a little corral feature out here. Get a real feel for how desolate it is out here in these hills. No trees, really just Joshua trees and some junipers down here that I'm not sure if they brought them with them or not. The other thing we can see is where they built using concrete and local material. They built an aquifer or a little reservoir where they could capture rainwater and use it. And you'll notice that rainwater and water is probably coming through these cracks here and getting pulled into this area. And they actually said there used to be a natural spring here as well coming through here, and I don't think it's around anymore. It's dried up. And pretty ingenious of them to build this feature up here in the 1920s and 30s to capture that water to give to the travelers coming along this road. And it is a beautiful view from up here. These mountains, by the way, are known as the Beaver Dam Mountains. So maybe there are some beavers out here, hence the name. I know you can get some trees if you get to slightly higher elevations, and they do get snow up here in the winter. But what a spectacular view from up here. Eventually the family expanded their operations to the other side of the road here and built some cabins. There's two little cabin houses here, and actually there's another little rock structure over here. And I don't know if they lived part-time in there. From what I read, they actually lived in the back of the gas station or of the service station. They would live there, but maybe they use these, and they would also rent these out to weary travelers to make some more money, obviously, in this area, because there's not a whole lot of accommodations for quite a distance when you're on top of this hill and you're looking out as you start coming off these mountains towards what's known as the Basin and Range in that direction. And we'll talk a little bit more about the Basin Range going that way, and the fact that we're standing really in the transition zone between what's known as the Colorado Plateau, where you think of things like the Grand Canyon and Bryce and Zion that have what we call flatline stratigraphy. So stratigraphy that's flatline, so my fingers are like stratigraphy, they're flatline. Whereas in the Basin Range, what ends up happening, things get faulted, and as things get faulted, they get rotated. So you actually have inclined bedding. You have a series of mountains that are developing across those features. And we'll take another look at that once we get to our next stop, just south of here, that I want to share with you all. Eventually the family would sell this place because a new highway, Highway 15, would cut through what was known as the Virgin River Gorge. And with that, at that time, the Virgin River Gorge, I think, was one of the most expensive pieces of highway when that was built. The family would leave this area, spread into other sections towards St. George, Utah. I don't know if any folks ended up in Nevada at all. But eventually the station that was once here will get dismantled and no longer exist except for in a series of pictures and one poem that was written, which I will take a picture of and post so you can read through that poem now. That was a look at Castle Cliffs and where the old gas station was. I love finding places like this and just imagine what life would be like here. From here, I want to go down the road and talk a little bit more about the history and the importance of this pathway through here, or this road. We're actually sitting along the old Spanish Trail, which was set up in the early 1800s to take material from Santa Fe all the way to Los Angeles. And they have a nice display and some markers along this road that I want to take you to. And I want to talk a little bit more about the geology here because, well, I'm around amazing geology. So let's get on down the road. Let's learn a little bit more about the old Spanish Trail, and then we'll wrap up from there. I'm just down the road from the Castle Cliff gas station now. I wanted to stop and show you this marker for the old Spanish Trail, which we've seen in some of my other videos going through central Utah, and I can link that up here so you can look at that. What I want to show here is they have this nice marker talking about the Spanish Trail from 1829 to 1848, and along with it, a nice map showing the trail. And so I'm actually sitting right here. I'm driving north from Las Vegas up into the St. George area, and where we've looked at this trail before is somewhere right in this area where I looked at the marker in my previous video. What we can see is the trail starts in Santa Fe, New Mexico, goes up to Durango, Colorado, goes all the way up to Moab, Green River, Salina, and works its way down and through. And it says this was the favored route through Mesquite, Nevada, through Las Vegas, Nevada, down through the desert and into Barstow, San Bernardino, and eventually Los Angeles. And here's a little bit about the old Spanish Trail history. In 1829, a Santa Fe merchant named Antonio Armijo led the first mule pack train loaded with trade goods to California from Santa Fe. Over 2 decades, multiple parallel and intertwined trails developed, creating a network of rugged long-distance trails known as the Old Spanish Trail. Use of the Old Spanish Trail declined by the mid-19th century as new wagons routes opened up to carry troops, gold rush miners coming out for the 1849 gold rush, immigrants, and others into the West. What I like is this image showing the mule packers as they traveled with all their pack mules. And on this, there's actually somewhere out here, I guess there's a petroglyph showing a mule that some of the indigenous people carved here or pecked into the rock in this area somewhere. I'd love to go see that someday. Along with that, they actually have this pack train you can walk up to and go see this cutout. Now, I've seen these in other parts of Utah. I saw one, I believe in Colorado as well. They had something kind of similar. But I love that they made these silhouettes up here that you can check out and walk along. Pretty cool spot to be at. Come here and check out these silhouettes showing the old Spanish Trail running through here. While I'm here as well, I might as well mention, because we've been talking about Castle Cliff and the Castle Cliff gas station, you'll see these cars going past me here. So this was the old Highway 91 route that during the Great Depression back in the 1930s, individuals would drive coming from the west or coming from Utah heading this direction, and they would come across this highway towards Las Vegas and California. So Route 66 was a very well-known popular route as well, but this Highway 91 served this section of the country for folks coming out west to find jobs and find work. And we learned about the Lowe's family who actually set up the Castle Cliff site earlier. The last thing I'll point out here is the amazing topography that we can see. Here's Highway 91 running down there, and you can see this amazing topography in the background. We're at a very unique geologic place here, and that is we are at the edge of the Basin Range province, which we can see there's these valleys and hills, and you can see hills back in the background, so it goes hills and valleys, or ranges and basins, hence the name Basin and Range, which is all set up by normal faulting that occurs here. So there's faults at the front of each of these mountains setting up these different valleys, including even these mountains down to the south. What ends up happening the second we get on the other side of these mountains is we end up starting to cross over into the Colorado Plateau region, which is somewhere where instead of all the rocks dipping, or if you can see what we call dip of the strata, the stratigraphy, ends up being flatlined. So you can think of things like the Grand Canyon, which sits not too far off in that direction. In fact, the Colorado River is in Lake Mead that supplies water to Las Vegas. It's just over towards where the sun is starting to set behind me, so apologize if there's a bit of a glare and the image isn't great right there, but that's the direction we're looking at for the Grand Canyon as well as for things like Lake Mead. So we're not far from all of those major kind of topographic and geographically known areas. What's fascinating about this area, and somewhere I'm going to do a video here soon, is that this is known as the Virgin Mountains or the Virgin River Gorge. And this gorge is fascinating geologically and geographically because it really sets up a difference between the Basin Range province. You actually drive through this gorge, and we'll take you through there, and you end up in the Colorado Plateau area in something like 15 miles or less. It's a pretty dramatic place to visit. It's one I'm actually surprised they have not made a national park out of or a state park out of. All right, with that being said, I appreciate all of you joining me today to learn about the Castle Cliff gas station. I read about this place. I've driven past it hundreds and hundreds of times up and down along this road, doing geology, traveling to see folks I know, going to school, and I wanted to share it with you because I thought it was a unique period of history, and we're pretty familiar with things like the Great Depression and this idea of this family starting a gas station along this lonely road where, you know, you wouldn't see very much traffic. In fact, we see some cars here. It's pretty quiet, but I wanted to share that story with you all. I thought it was fascinating. So with that being said, if you enjoyed this video, the mules, the caballero here all suggest that you know what to do. So with that being said, you all take care. I appreciate all of you watching, and we'll see you on the next adventure.